Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing The Mistletoe Mystery, written by Nita Prose. It's book 2.5 to feature the character Molly the Maid. And that character has two previous books out there already, both cozy mystery type books. Now this book, being called The Mistletoe Mystery, may cheese a few readers off, I think, because they'll expect a mystery, just like the first two books. This book doesn't have that sort of mystery. It's more just a Christmas story. A novella actually, it's very short. Just a kind of a sweet Christmas story. No mystery there really at all. So I wonder what many readers will think about that, because I think many readers out there, including me, when I started to read this book, I expected a more traditional mystery. I didn't expect this just to be like a general fiction sweet Christmas story. That's what it is. So this story is a novella. It is quite short, a very quick read, and it's basically a Christmas story starring Molly the Maid. It also stars regular characters from the first two books. And it's just a general Christmas story. It's very sweet. It's actually oversweet. And I don't really go for oversweet books generally, but I enjoyed this, and that's because of the narrative voice of Molly. I like her voice in all the books she's in. I like the way she sees the world, how she thinks about things. We know she thinks about things differently sometimes in her character, and that comes through in narrative voice all the time in these books, and I do enjoy that. I think her character is wonderful. And other characters in this book are just as good as the long version books, the first two books, those mysteries. They're just as good in this short book, and I enjoyed them as well. I can't say too much about the story because if I do, it'll give it all away because it is so short. But there is one big theme in this story, and I like the way that all played out. It's very obvious what's going on. I mean, it's not hard to work out when you start reading this, so it's no big mystery really. So I don't know why we have this Christmas story in this series. I'm kind of glad we did though, because it brings these characters into a more festive light actually, a different light. It brings about something I think that the author may not want to put in the main book. And there is a third book in the Molly series, and that's coming I think next year in 2025. So I think this novella is intended to be like a bridge between book 2 and 3 and just progress the characters to a certain point to make way for what's going to happen in the third book. And once you get to the end of this novella, I guess you can kind of guess what's going to happen in book 3 anyway. So basically I think read this if you want to read it. I think you'll need to read the first two books first because they all lead up to what happens in this book. If you haven't read the first two books, this book is still a standalone, but the characters won't make sense to you because the characters all lead on from the end of book 2. I enjoyed it like I said. It is very short, won't take you long to read. It's a very sweet story. If you like sweet Christmas type stories, I think you'll like this. If you don't like that type of story, you probably won't like this anyway. And if you haven't read the first two books, you probably won't read this at all because, like I said, it won't make much sense unless you read the first two books. But as stories go, as Christmas stories go, which I don't read too many Christmas stories anyway, but as Christmas stories go, I enjoyed it. It's quite charming, and I think that charm comes from the narrative voice of Molly, but it's also quite sweet. I like the overall story, I like where it ends, and I like how it makes us think about the third book in the series that's coming next year. I bypassed the usual segment on characters in this video because it's so short. There's no real characters to speak of, and the characters we have in this story, I probably already mentioned them in previous videos on this series anyway. But as a final score, I rate this a 4 out of 5. So even though I don't really read that many Christmas stories, even though this is quite overly sweet, and I don't really go for those overly sweet type stories anyway, I enjoyed this primarily because of the character Molly. Her narrative voice is great. I think one of the best characters in the last few years anyway in fiction, and I enjoyed this overall. On my channel I review books of all different genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.